Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder why babies seem to respond to music even before they can talk? Or if music is just something we humans invented? Or if other animals have their own versions of it? Well, this new research dives deep into the biological roots of our musicality. Imagine a world where studying music's origins was considered pure guesswork. For a long time, scientists thought that because music doesn't fossilize and our brains don't leave behind ancient records, we'd never really figure out how our deep love for organized sound came to be. It seemed like we were stuck relying on sheer speculation. Not much different from what thinkers hundreds of years ago were doing. But in the last couple of decades, something amazing has happened. A whole bunch of different fields like psychology, brain science, biology, even animal behavior have teamed up. They've shifted their focus from just studying music itself like a song or a symphony to something much more fundamental. Musicality. So, what exactly is musicality? Think of it as our innate biological ability to grasp, create, and even get pleasure from structured sound. It's not just about liking tunes. It's about our brain's built-in tools for rhythm, pitch, and those moments when we know what's coming next in a melody. This change in thinking opened the door to really rigorous scientific investigation, using methods that just weren't around before. And the findings are pretty mind-blowing. It turns out we're not just born blank slates, culturally programmed to love music. Even brand new babies, straight out of the womb, can spot different rhythms. They seem to prefer certain melodic shapes and even have expectations about how sounds will change in terms of pitch and timing, all before they've even learned their first words. As they grow, children instinctively understand musical patterns, suggesting these are inborn talents, not just something they picked up from listening around. This idea holds up even when you look across different cultures. Now, obviously, music sounds wildly different all over the world. But there are some surprising common threads. Researchers have found that many societies tend to use similar small sets of musical notes, have limits on how rhythms can be structured, and follow certain predictable melodic patterns. They call these statistical universals. It's like Therese's shared blueprint in our brains that guides how we create and appreciate music, going beyond just random cultural fads. But looking at music across cultures only tells you so much. It shows you what music is like, but not necessarily how we became musical. That's where looking at the underlying biological mechanisms comes in. Scientists are now trying to understand the nitty-gritty. How do we sense patterns? How do we feel a beat? How do we remember melodies? And what makes certain sounds pleasurable? Answering these questions allows us to make educated guesses about evolution, especially when we can study these abilities in different species and at different stages of development. This is where the animal kingdom becomes incredibly interesting. By comparing different species, we can get clues about music's evolutionary journey. If we see a musical trait in, say, humans and chimpanzees, it's likely that this ability was present in our shared ancestor long ago. But if we see similar traits in very different animals, like songbirds and dolphins, that suggests something called convergent evolution. It means different species facing similar biological pressures developed similar solutions, giving us hints about the fundamental biological tools that support musical behavior. For instance, studying primates has really helped us understand the building blocks of musicality. Recent work suggests that our ability to process rhythm, like feeling the beat or recognizing perfectly spaced sounds, has likely been developing gradually within our primate family tree. In fact, some research shows that trained monkeys can actually tap along to complex human music under specific conditions. This gives us a peek into the brain circuitry that might be involved in sensing and synchronizing with a beat, which is a cornerstone of musicality. Now, it's super important to remember that just because an animal makes sounds that seem musical, it doesn't mean they have musicality. A bird might sing a complex song, but without testing what they actually perceive or understand, we can't assume they're experiencing it like we do. The real key in this comparative research is rigorous testing. Scientists want to know what animals can distinguish, what they can learn to do from scratch, and what they prefer, not just what they happen to produce or what we can train them to do. So this way of looking at things, comparing species and abilities, helps us see musicality not as one single thing, but as a collection of different traits, each with its own unique evolutionary story. They call this the multi-component hypothesis. Some of these abilities might be ancient and shared by many species, while others could be highly specialized in certain groups. Understanding this collection of traits is crucial for figuring out how musicality as a whole came to be. One of the biggest hurdles in studying musicality has been our intense focus on language. Because spoken language is so central to human communication, scientists have often looked at other auditory phenomena through a linguistic lens. Musical rhythms and melodies were sometimes seen as just the music of speech, like intonation. or even just a side effect of how our brains process language. But there is a lot of evidence now that says this isn't the whole story. Brain imaging studies show that music and language use partially different brain pathways, and these pathways might have evolved on their own. We also see that infants react strongly to musical elements way before they understand any words, and clinically there are cases where people with severe language problems like aphasia can still enjoy and even produce music. On the flip side, some people have a condition called congenital amusia, a lifelong inability to perceive music, but their language skills are perfectly fine. Even looking at animals with no language at all gives us clues. Birds and marine mammals create incredibly complex vocalizations with their own musical-like structures. This strongly suggests that many aspects of musicality can develop completely separately from language systems. This really challenges the old idea that music is just a byproduct of language. Instead, the evidence points to music being a much older, fundamental biological capacity that might have even paved the way for language itself, including things like the rhythm and turn-taking in our speech. This idea actually was first proposed by Charles Darwin himself, and modern research is now giving it a lot of solid backing. So, if music didn't just pop out of language, where did it come from? A likely idea is that musicality evolved by combining existing abilities in new ways. Think of it like building with Legos. We started with fundamental building blocks our brains already had for perceiving the world, for moving our bodies, and for feeling emotions, rhythm. Uses our brain's planning and timing circuits. Pitch perception relies on specialized hearing abilities, and our emotional responses to music tap into reward systems that are very ancient and shared across many species. Over time, evolution seems to have stitched these abilities together into a more unified system. This system became a sort of biological platform for how we process and enjoy organized sound. Once the system was in place, it could have supported both the development of human music and some key parts of language, like the musicality of our speech and how we take turns talking. And now, with the help of genetics, we're starting to get an even clearer picture. Early studies hint that genes related to hearing, rhythm sensitivity, and vocal learning might play a role in why some people are more musical than others. As we compare the genes of different species, we might soon be able to pinpoint exactly which genetic changes helped our musical abilities emerge. This way of thinking, that musicality is a complex trait built from many parts, with deep evolutionary roots, offers a really useful way to tie together all the new research coming from different scientific fields. So, the explosion of research in musicality really shows how scientists are starting to see one of our most unique human abilities in a new light. It's no longer just a topic for music scholars. It's now a key area for understanding animal behavior, how brains develop, how to model these processes, and even the role of our genes. This new wave of research gives us incredible tools to rebuild the evolutionary story of musicality. Instead of just debating if music is useful, we can now study how specific parts of it, like feeling a beat or anticipating a melody or reacting emotionally, actually evolved and how they work across different species. And this shift in understanding has real-world benefits too. Learning more about musicality could help us develop better ways to treat language or motor disorders, and even help with emotional regulation. It could also shape how we approach education, build stronger communities, and improve overall well-being. By seeing music as a fundamental part of being human, not just some extra cultural decoration, it really highlights how important it is to understand its biological basis. It is fascinating to think about how these ancient biological roots have shaped something as profound and universal as music. This research suggests that our capacity for music isn't some late-stage invention, but something deeply embedded in our evolutionary history, shared in its building blocks with other animals, and possibly even predating our ability to speak. It's a powerful reminder that our connection to organized sound is a fundamental part of what makes us human. What this study really shows us is that musicality is a fundamental human capacity with deep evolutionary roots that likely predate language. It is not just a cultural phenomenon, but a biological one, built from a mosaic of abilities that evolved over millions of years, partly through shared ancestry with other primates and partly through convergent evolution with other species. The research team has done a fantastic job of bridging different scientific disciplines to paint this picture. One of the study's strengths is its really broad approach, combining insights from infant studies, cross-cultural analysis, neuroscience, and comparative cognition. This gives us a much richer understanding than any single field could provide. The idea of musicality as a multi-component mosaic is particularly compelling, helping us move beyond simplistic explanations. However, like all research, there are always areas for future exploration. While this study convincingly argues for the biological basis of musicality and its independent evolution from language, precisely how these components integrated to form what we recognize as music is still a complex question. Future research could delve deeper into the specific neural mechanisms that allow for this integration and explore more diverse species to better understand the full spectrum of musicality across the animal kingdom. Understanding the genetic underpinnings, as hinted at in the paper, will also be crucial for unlocking more secrets. Ultimately, this research transforms our understanding of music from a mere cultural artifact into a core element of human biology. It suggests that our musicality might be as fundamental to our existence as our ability to communicate or form social bonds. This has huge implications for how we think about human uniqueness, the evolution of cognition, and even how we might use music to connect with each other and understand ourselves better. What do you think is the most surprising aspect of this research? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the science of music, please hit that like button. Subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more fascinating research breakdowns, and share this video with anyone who loves music. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.